Well, Mary Ellen, I'm going to thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and to share with us some of your stories about being a treasurer of the United States. Uh, THA, the Treasury Historical Association, is here to share some stories and hopefully inspire a few young people, maybe a few young women, to be a part of a really amazing department that is behind so much of the way our country runs and the way so much of our economics and financial systems work. And so we really appreciate your taking some time today to share your adventures and to hopefully inspire a few people to look into it further. So, why don't you just begin by telling us what mentors or teachers or political friends, how did you decide that you were going to be a U.S. treasurer? How did that come to pass?
Well, it I was getting ready to run for governor of Ohio, and I had a call from the women executives in state government, and they were encouraging me to run. I was on their board, and then I heard from the national Democratic chairman, who was from Ohio, that talked to me about it. And then the person that really, I think, was very effective in getting me the job was Al Gore. I had been his honorary chair back in 1988 when he ran for president, and I had raised quite a bit of money for him, and he never forgot. And so he was very supportive in getting me appointed. I was sworn in on March 1st, 1994. And I had to wait a while. There was a lot of people, I guess, that were after the job. And it was all through 93 that I was waiting to hear. And then I think it was in August, they called and said it was down to 2 people. And then in it was November that I heard from Lloyd Benson, and said I had the job, but I couldn't tell anyone because it hadn't been any. I had to visit all of the financial people that were on the committee and get their approval in the Senate. I guess they don't have to have the Senate approval anymore as of 2012, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Well, was there anyone you say you? It sounds like you had a real strong background in politics. Was there anybody who particularly inspired you to go into politics?
Yes, I started out on a school board, and I had 2 teachers came to visit me one day and wanted me to run for school board, and there were no women on the board. And I thought about it a while, and then I decided to run, and that's really how I got started. And I was fascinated with being in office and the things that you could accomplish when you were in office that you couldn't when you weren't in office. And I think that's what really got me going. I felt I could help people. And I was the only person that went from county treasurer and state treasurer and U.S. treasurer, the only person that's ever been in all 3 levels of government.
Is that right? Tell us more about that. And so was that just through a dedication to political activity, or?
No, it wasn't anything I intended to do. I I think back and I really am amazed that it happened. But I was fascinated with what I was doing, and I just wanted to keep going.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, you must have been really, really good at it.
Well, yeah, I served 2 terms as county treasurer and 3 terms. That's 12 years as state treasurer.
Well, and then how many years were you were in the Clinton administration for quite a long time too.
7 years, so it was 25 years. It was 6 years as county treasurer and 12 years as state treasurer and 7 years as U.S. treasurer.
Uh-huh. Now, if I recall correctly, you have some sort of a record in terms of your role as a U.S. treasurer having to do with your signature.
Oh, yes, I'm in the Guinness Book of Records. Yeah, I have my signature on more currency than anyone in history, and I think I still hold that. And a lot of it was due to the fact that Clinton had such a healthy administration and economics, and everything as far as the money was concerned was going so well. And then we had the change of the century while I was there, and we were so worried about what would happen when that happened, whether people would really get into taking their money out of the bank or what they were going to do because of the situation. And so we had a lot more $100 bills printed just in case. And I was in Florida on New Year's Eve, and I was even on call in Florida, but nothing serious happened. So we didn't need to print very many $100 bills the next year.
Well, I've talked with a lot of your colleagues who've lived through some really crisis moments in the country's history. And it sounds like, was that the only sort of major historical event that came up during your tenure, the turn of the century?
No, we had the Olympics in Atlanta in 1996, and that was quite an event. We had to create the Olympic coins, and Congress tells us how many coins to produce, and they really had us producing a lot. And so for the first time, we were selling coins in other countries. They would get a percentage and we would get a percentage. And so I traveled all over the world marketing these Olympic coins. And I think Japan sold the most. But once it happened when I went to South Korea. In all of the countries I would visit where they created the coins and see their operations. So when I got to South Korea, they said they couldn't take me to their place that they made the coins because some girl had stolen some money, and they were so embarrassed about it, and they had shut down the facility, and they said they'd take me to see the DMZ. So that was fine. I was really excited to see the DMZ, and I thought it was quite a story, and I really wondered what happened to that girl that had, stolen the money.
Oh my goodness. Were there now the Olympics in Atlanta, as I recall, was there was an important, unfortunate incident during that time when wasn't there a bomber in the...
Yes, a bomb went off, and I had intended to go to the Olympics, but when that happened, I decided not to go. And one of my staff was there and experienced all of that. I guess it was quite a time, and of course that the situation of the bomb and who did it, I don't know. It was kind of a mystery, I guess. They thought somebody did it, and I don't know if he really did or not.
The Olympic travel sounds kind of exciting and fun. Did you what do you think may have been your most important accomplishment while you were serving as treasurer?
Well, it was so fascinating to meet the different people in the countries. Uh, the man that was in China, he said, of course, he couldn't speak English. He said this is the first time they ever sold a foreign coin in their country. He said he took a lot of criticism.
Was there anything that surprised you about your job as U.S. treasurer compared to what you'd done for the others?
Yes, I was surprised when they wanted to do away with the dollar coin or the dollar bill. They had contacted me about making another dollar coin, and we I guess we had we had made several in the last century. We had the Morgan, the Peace, the Eisenhower, and the Susan B. Anthony, and then ended up we had Sacagawea, and it was quite a lot of meetings and planning to decide on Sacagawea because they wanted to have a woman on it, and they wanted it to be gold. And the committee, there was 3 men and 3 women on the committee, and the women wanted a real woman and the men wanted the Statue of Liberty. And they met for like 2 days in Philadelphia discussing this and had people come, and all the women's organizations were represented and testified before them. And they couldn't, the men were well, there was one man that was really upset about it. He said, it was one of the congressmen from Delaware. He said, well, we're going to pass that in the middle of the night. And so everybody was very alert to what was happening to this bill. And as it ended up, they had sort of I guess you could call it a compromise with Sacagawea. And it was a national thing on the internet where everybody could look at the different artists' examples of what they wanted to submit, and we had then a winner that was Glenna Goodacre, who won, and she had the model for her to be Sacagawea's descendant, and so that was exciting. And they, there was quite a lot of discussion in Treasury during all of this because they wanted everything to be correct with the Indians, and it was quite a process. And finally, we have Sacagawea. But back to the dollar bill, everybody was so they wrote all these letters and called, and they did not want to do away with the dollar bill. And so they decided to continue with the dollar bill and to also make the coin.
If I remember correctly, I think the Mount Vernon Ladies Association had something to do with that because they did not want George Washington's image to disappear from the currency, and he is on the dollar bill.
Oh, is that right? I was there to introduce a coin that they represented, and I remember that very well. They were an interesting group. I can't remember what it was, but it was a coin that they had something to do with.
Yes. Yeah, I think I'm wearing it. Yes. Yeah, it's a $5 gold piece. I think it was from 1999, or that's the date on this one. And it was in commemoration of, I guess, his death, sadly. But it would have been the bicentennial of his death because he died in 1799.
Yes, well, they had a funeral for a mock funeral for Washington that I went to. It was, yes, it was really quite an event, and they showed how the Masons were very involved in everything, and had the food that they had, and yeah, it was quite a exciting time.
Yes, yes, that was an important year. Super. Well, what a small world. Who would have dreamed? I'm wearing that very coin that you introduced.
Yes, right. Yes, who would have known you would happen to have the coin on?
Well, it is a beautiful piece, and my husband gave it to me for Christmas one year when I was working at Mount Vernon. And I said, "Well, I can't have that sitting in a drawer. I need to wear it." So that's how I came to wear it. I love it. Actually, I wear it all the time. So was there like a most memorable day during your term as treasurer, Mary Ellen, that really stands out?
Yes, there was. We redesigned all the currency except the $1 and $2 bill. And we started with the $100 bill. And the day that we released that, I think, was probably the most exciting day because, well, the money hadn't been redesigned since 1928. And there were counterfeit concerns. And so this bill was released all over the world, and they had to store it in places where they had never stored it before, and to have access to it right away. And the Secret Service were very worried about the event, and we made so many speeches about how their old currency would still be good because we didn't want any uprisings over the money being changed, and they would be have a problem. So it all worked out, but it was an exciting day. I was in Washington where I belonged. I was very interested though in everything that was happening because it had really been talked about and worked at for so long, and that's what happens when we release something like that. It's a very important event.
Since 1928, that's a long time. Um, and I've heard others discuss this measures that are taken when the designs are altered to prevent counterfeiting. Did you find that effort, which was the first one in so many years, was it successful?
Yes, I think it was, and I had to make so many speeches to so many different groups talking about the how the bill was going to be changed, and there was writing on the collars, and it was fascinating to me, the work that had been done. And of course they're continuing it all the time, but we would not show a bill ahead of time any farther ahead than we had to, because the counterfeiters then would see what we were doing, and they'd try to beat us to the punch. And yeah, it was always a time where you really were trying to keep the information quiet until it was released.
So was there a ribbon cutting? Was there a ceremony? Did you have to be on the Hill and pat the congressman's back?
Oh, no, 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 it wasn't that. There was nothing like that. But um, there was something else I was going to tell you there. Um, but there were so many countries that had never even heard of, and we had to make pamphlets in different languages for all of those countries and get it out there.
Well, fast forward a few years, and you've been very involved in the Treasury Historical Association's efforts to ramp up the education programs. Why is that something that you're interested in being involved with?
Well, I love history, and I have just really enjoyed that organization. They did so much good in Treasury, and the fact that I could study about all of the treasurers. I was so interested in the people that had been treasurer, and also the laws and what the different treasurers had to follow, because the laws had changed from the beginning to when I was treasurer. And in fact, there was a treasurer before there was a president, because there had to be somebody, that took care of the country's money. And the the different treasures. There was one that was the treasurer for Lincoln, Spencer. Let's see, what was his name? Right now, I can't say it, but he's got his name on the wall there in the cash room, and he even slept at Treasury because they had left one of the vault doors open one night, and he found out about it, and he was so conscientious that he slept at Treasury after that. That the security guard didn't do his job, and so Spinner took care of it. I went to he was from Herkimer, New York, and when I was treasurer, they sent me to Herkimer, New York to uh, dedicate this house that the women in Treasury had dedicated to him. He was the first treasurer to hire women, and they had to dress like men to come to work, because it was such an unusual thing for women to work outside the home. And these descendants of the women that were hired did this, and so I went to Herkimer, New York, and dedicated the home, and it was a very exciting day for everybody. But another thing about him, he had at one point had been a sheriff, and had this. It was a Remington gun that was also a cane. And when he got to Washington, everybody wanted one, and they were only $6 a piece. So everybody was asking for this gun cane, and I thought that was kind of fun. Can you imagine? And I just heard Remington just had a big uh, uh, a court case against them. Yeah, how everything keeps going.
Yeah, that sounds like something out of James Bond, doesn't it? So I know that you had quite a collection, or maybe you still do, Mary Ellen, of the memorabilia. How have you shared that after your time in office?
Well, I'm a museum. I had it here at Primrose at this retirement facility. I had everything there, and I've taken a lot of people through the museum, and we're moving it now to the Marion Historical Society, and it's in the process of being moved.
So that's right there in Marion, Ohio. Am I right? Wonderful. So that'll be available then to anyone who wants to visit the Historical Society?
Yes, I had wanted children to be able to see the exhibit, and when it was here, it was in a room that wasn't large enough for a lot of children to come in. I could get a few people in here, but I had to be careful about the number of people that were in at one time. So I felt that I needed to move it to the Historical Society. So we're in the process right now.
So what kinds of, say 2 or 3 years from now when I come to Marion to visit, what kinds of items would I find in your collection?
Well, you would find the Guinness Book of Records, and you would find, I have a $20 bill that I gave John Glenn when he went up in space, and the serial number on the bill is the date of his flight. And he brought it back and gave it back to me, and I think that's probably the most valuable thing I have there. And then I have I have a model of the Discovery that he went up in. It's rather impressive. There was only 4 of those, and it was given to me when we were doing the New York savings bond drive. I marketed the savings bonds too when I was there.
Tell us more about that. I've heard one other former treasurer speak about marketing savings bonds, and now you've brought it up. Tell us how that works.
Yes, I would travel. They would invite me to different locations to speak, and we had savings bonds going very, very well during my administration, because we really made a lot of trips around the country, and then everything changed when our administration left, because George Bush followed, and he had his own savings plan that he was going to get passed, and he didn't get it accomplished. And so the savings bonds went to pretty much the internet and the banks, and there weren't the people out there that were savings bonds people anymore, like there had been. And so it's sort of a thing that you don't hear much about anymore because of that.
So you probably oversaw the last big drive towards buying savings bonds and selling them. Yes. Yeah. Are any examples of those in your collection?
Well, could not buy savings bonds when I became U.S. Treasurer, but I bought a lot of them when I was State Treasurer, and I've already cashed them in. And there's a lot of bonds out there that aren't cashed. That's a concern, and people probably maybe have bonds and are not aware of having them. Sometimes that happens. But the museum was a lot of fun, and then I also I have given a lot of scholarship money to girls going for college. We've done quite a bit of that. Then I've made so many speeches since I've been out of Treasury, and I've been everywhere giving speeches. Well, it would be probably mostly about what it was like to be U.S. Treasurer. People were very interested in knowing about it, and when they would come to the museum, I would usually take the people around and explain everything that was there, pretty much.
Such a pleasure to chat with you, because you do have so many wonderful perspectives and stories, and it's a little bit of an era, like you say, when George Bush came in and everything started moving to the internet, and the there was an era there that really kind of kind of capsulized a different way of life in terms of financial markets, and, and you presided over it.
Yes, there is one other thing I wanted to mention. When I came to Treasury, they wanted me to talk about saving, and I I did. I included it in my speeches, and then I felt like I wasn't making any headway. The reason they wanted me to talk about saving was because our saving rate was so low. It was between 3 and 4%, and the other major countries, Japan, I think, was 14%, France was 13%. And so I decided to include schools when I went out to speak. I'd go to wherever I was invited to speak, and then I'd include about 3 schools and talk to children about saving. And I think it was very effective because I felt like, they listened to me. They were impressed with me because I had my name on the money. That really impressed them. Yeah.